digital transformation is really about business leadership. It is key to success. And that's really where I think you come in. Sales leadership, business leadership are really key indicators for success of digital transformation projects, and it has implications for sellers. So every business today needs to be a digital business. Every company needs to be a tech company, or risk going out of business. Think about Airbnb, what that's done for the hotel industry, and how hotels have had to change and keep up and add more technology to have a different offering. So how many of you have canceled or not renewed your sales contract with some of your biggest customers? Yeah, I didn't think so. So did you guys see the news last week that FedEx canceled their contract or didn't renew their contract with Amazon? I mean, that's kind of astounding. Think about that. Who is Amazon? Are they friend? Are they foe? They were a bookseller, a retailer. They're doing logistics now. They're in medical insurance. So digital transformation is opening up lots of new capabilities, new markets, and it has implications for every business in the world. And you guys know that. So a few statistics. Digital's changing the landscape. 30% of businesses are using their information assets to monetize. So I have a quick example for you. Think of LinkedIn. So we've all put our resume and career data into LinkedIn. It is arguably the largest professional database in the world. So LinkedIn is now monetizing that data asset that we all willingly provided, and they're working with companies and countries like Singapore, the government of Singapore, to look at what their citizens in Singapore, what their skills are, and then what skills they need for the future. And then they're building a curriculum. They bought a learning company, a training company. They're building a curriculum to prepare the citizens of Singapore for the future world and the kinds of skills needed. So that's an example where LinkedIn's leveraging and monetizing the information assets. And if you guys don't know, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, but I just thought it was a kind of a relatable example. So 84% of CEOs expect digital selling to increase the profits of their company. Digital businesses generate more, 100 million more in operating income every year. And businesses are investing. 60% of businesses are investing. So a few data points to kind of ground us in what's going on. And as I looked at what CEOs are saying about digital transformation, a few themes emerged. The first one is that speed matters. Meg Whitman's has a quote that the future belongs to the fastest. Well, let me give you a story. It's not always the best to be fast. Speed doesn't always mean fast is best. So let me give you a story. So I had the good fortune a couple of years ago to be assigned, as a sales leader at Microsoft. In fact, my business card just says sales leader. I don't say what I actually do because it's changed so much. But anyways, I had the good fortune to be this global sales leader for Windows. So super excited, and I got a multi-billion-dollar quota. Exciting, the first time I've ever had a quota with multiple B's in it. So I tell you what the number is, but we don't actually report that level of detail, and I don't want to be in trouble with Amy and our compliance people. But anyway, very exciting, but also terrifying. And so about 6 months into it, I realized that we had a problem. That we went with Windows 10, we went to an 18-month life cycle, where with Windows 7 and 8.1, we had a 10-year life cycle. And I started getting, as we reached the end of the first 10-year or 18-month life cycle, I started getting calls from the sellers and from escalations from customers and say, can you extend the life cycle? We just can't move fast enough to stay current and update our operating system on our devices. And so it's basically we were defying the law of physics by thinking that was something that customers could do and stay current. And what we had looked at is Google and Apple do it, and we should be able to do it. At any rate, so through the feedback from the field and the insights, I was able to put together, kind of a case and use data, and we ended up changing the life cycle. So we introduced something that moved too quickly for our customers. So you also have to take into account the feedback. And you run sales teams, you are on the front line, and it's so important that you have a voice back into corporate, that you have a seat at the table where your sellers have unique insights into the competition, products, what might make your company more competitive. So think about that, because strategies in a vacuum or in the ivory tower, however you want to call it, sometimes well-intentioned, but maybe aren't at the right time for the market. Another thing is trust. Trust really matters. So trust is acting consistently over time. And when everything's connected and the ecosystems and the industries are all merging, things can go awry. Think about privacy breaches, data breaches. It's not just what happened, it's really how companies address issues as they arise. That builds trust. Trust with customers, trust with partners, and trust, frankly, with your own internal sellers. So the way we introduce products has dramatically changed, and this is across all industries. Things are moving so fast, you can no longer have a 5-year product life cycle. So every industry creates minimal products, minimally viable products, does a soft introduction, works with early adopter customers to refine it and finish it. And so that's no different at Microsoft. And in fact, 10 years ago, when we introduced Office 365, we went from selling Office on the desktop on-premise product to a cloud-based product. So our sellers were going along selling, forecasting, et cetera, and they came to the end of the sales cycle and the deals didn't close. And so it was like, well, what's going on? Well, it turned out, as you guys know, I heard about it earlier today, the buyers have changed. So what happened is legal got involved. Oh, it's a cloud service. Oh, what about your privacy, et cetera. So we ended up needing to develop a different sales methodology, and we call it the Cloud Decision Framework. And we basically map out all of the stakeholders and through the sales cycle and the customer conversations that need to happen. So basically, we can qualify out ahead of time or early in the sales cycle before we get to the end. So guess what? We moved compliance, privacy, legal reviews to the front of the sales cycle. We developed 8 cloud principles. Because it used to be 10 years ago, our customers would say, well, we want to audit you, we want the right to audit your data centers. And we decided, no. So we had 8 things. So say, you're not going to, you can't audit our data centers, but we'll give you the audit report. We'll have professional auditors and we'll give you the report, but we can't allow you to come into the data center. So those cloud principles were basically a qualify out. If a customer wasn't willing to do that, then we moved on. So things change when you move to the cloud. You think, you have to sell differently, think differently. So think about those, there's, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 8 columns, 5 columns, 8 rows, 40 cells in that. Who creates the content of what the customer conversation needs to be for the sellers? Is that marketing? How do they know what's relevant in each stage? It gets kind of complex pretty quick. But that's an example of how, we had a certain logic and how to do it, and it's changed. We revised it again with GDPR because new requirements. We felt like we were kind of getting ahead of the curve in terms of our GDPR work, but it added new compliance and new stakeholders. And in fact, most of our sales, you have a lot of different, sponsors. We'll have sponsors for security, we'll have an executive sponsor for the overall project. And so we also use this tool with our customers so they can see where they are in the buying process, the buying decision. We sit with them weekly and talk about it, or monthly, whatever the right cadence is. And anyways, if any of you are interested in having a copy of that, I'm happy to share it. We share with customers. I'll give you a generic version if you're interested, helen.fanucci@microsoft.com. So that's one example of how things have changed with product introductions. I'm currently leading a incubation product introduction for modern desktop, and it's called Microsoft Managed Desktop. We go in and we manage a customer's desktops. We hired 15 incubation sellers. You don't want to screw up your main revenue stream. So you have your main sellers selling everything. We have a customer success organization, but with these 15 sellers, they don't get paid on transaction. They get paid when customers are actually using it. So again, we changed our sales cycle, moved things up earlier in the sales cycle. And I'll tell you, it's kind of different to the customer journey. You think about, okay, well, here you are transacting. Well, that's not good enough. So lots of changes with product introductions. And then relationships with customers and partners have changed as well. Customers want a long life cycle. They want to know that you'll be there to help with success, and who you partner with matters as well. So one of the things two CEOs say, technology is easy and culture is the hard part. And culture is really about the norms in a customer, the norms and behavior patterns, customs in a company. And it matters. The data is that McKinsey did a study, 50% of digital transformation projects failed to deliver results because behavior didn't change. Boston Consulting Group did a similar study. Those transformations that address culture had bigger impact and bigger results. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, because that's really about leadership. And Microsoft has done a lot in the area of changing culture. So a quick model for how we think about digital transformation for sales leaders. Transforming products. There's a lot of data. We talked about that earlier. And customers are overwhelmed by data, and your sellers can really help customers make sense of that. There was a lot of technology has sensors on it. So I had the opportunity last summer to go to a hospital, and I had multiple hospitals on a campus, a university campus. I was in the basement and surprised to see robots moving technology from hospital underground. And everything can be digitized. And so you might have business processes that get digitized. In the hospital ward, maybe you have situations where there is, spills. There might be blood on the floor, and that can be digitized. In fact, 92% of all data has been generated in the last 2 years. That is tremendous. Companies are swimming in data, and they need help. So your sellers, what you sell, helping your customers deal with the data overflow is key. Innovating the platform. A lot of companies have put all our data together. We used to argue over whose data was right. Now we create dashboards. Everybody has the same data. And now we talk about insights, trends in the business. What's the market opportunity? In July, we announced our annual results. We grew 14%, $125 billion company, the most valuable company on the planet. We celebrated for sure, but then it was, okay, well, what did we do well? What can we double down on? What do we need to do differently? So it's really all about the data and insights. It's not sufficient for our sellers to just sell product. It's like, give us the trends, tell us what's working, not working. And that is an opportunity, I think, for all of us. And then engaging customers. At every step in the customer journey, there's an exchange of value. Why do customers want to talk to you and your teams early in the sales cycle? What about later in the sales cycle? They're giving you information. They're telling you about their pain points. What value are you delivering back? What about after the sale? What value are you delivering back? Our customers generate 4 trillion emails a month in Office 365 and 1 billion calendar appointments every month. We've looked at that data, and you know what? We've done some analysis, and sellers who have a 40% larger network and who spend a third of their time with FaceTime with customers generate 25% more revenue results. So we give that data back to customers. We have insights based on the technology to help them be successful. Okay, so all of this is possible when we empower our employees. Again, culture is about really empowering employees to feel valued and empowering them to do their best work, and also really having a culture where behaviors and norms are expected. And at Microsoft, we've done a lot of different things to change the culture. When Satya Nadella joined as CEO or got promoted to CEO, culture was his top priority, because without changing behaviors and being able to do things differently and think differently, it's really hard to move quickly as an organization. Anyway, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about culture at Microsoft. I know, it's a sales conference and there's a lot of things, but culture really matters. There's three points I'm going to make. Growth mindset. So Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. So we're moving from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. This has implications. When I joined Microsoft 11 years ago, after about a month, my boss said, "Hey, how is it? What do you think?" I go, "Well, it seems like there's a premium on everybody like having really complicated PowerPoint slides with lots of data, and then they just talk like they know it, they know everything, and they kind of come armored up, like you can't really ask them questions. They, you get kind of like, oh well, don't you understand, or something." So it was really kind of a culture of it was really important to look smart, basically. And so in a learn-it-all culture, you have to let people be okay to fail. And we talk about failing fast, but that's like a tall order. So if somebody fails, what consequence do they get? Do you ask them what they learned? Do you, dig in and acquire what kind of support do they need, whatever? So it definitely has implications, but it makes it more fun to work. We changed our performance and reward system. So it used to be about my individual achievements. Now I'm also graded on, what did I do to help other groups or other people succeed? And then the third thing is, what are other people doing or have delivered that I can use and leverage and build upon? So it fosters a different kind of culture and environment. Also, we don't give feedback anymore. We give perspectives. So it's a change of words, but it feels really different. My perspective might be useful to you or not. It might be accurate or not, but it's a perspective. It's not the truth. And then diversity and inclusion. I mean, people talk about that a lot. I think diversity is relatively easy. You can measure it. Inclusion is tough because you actually have to change behavior. And people who don't feel included, they won't stay at work. They won't stay in your company. They'll go do other things or in your group. And so how do you have people feel included? We have meetings where everyone's talking over each other. Does anyone stop and say, "Hey, we haven't heard from so-and-so," or have we given the people on the phone the opportunity to talk? And so some of those things people are doing more and being more aware of inclusion. And why does that matter? Well, when the world is changing fast, no one can know it all. I mean, we need a lot of different voices and perspectives to do a better job as a whole, make better decisions. And also, if we're going to serve every person on the planet, we need representation from lots of different cultures and groups. And then reinforce. So our leaders reinforce culture all the time. Satya talks about how he when he makes mistakes, or he had a blind spot here or there. So it's reinforced. In our sales conference in Las Vegas a couple months ago, there was a deeper level of examples and discussion about inclusion and what it meant. And there's some people from the company that got on stage and talked about examples where they were not treated in the best way. And so it kind of brought out a different conversation. And in our old sales conferences, we never would have had that. And then 3 things that we've learned. So symbolic changes, big and small. So when Satya took over, he launched Office 365. He released Office 365 on Mac, iPhone, and Android devices. In San Francisco, he got up on stage and talked about how Microsoft loves Linux. Well, if you follow Microsoft, you know that those things were unheard of in the past. But that signaled to our customers, the market, our competitors, and importantly, and maybe most importantly, to our employees, that things would be different under Satya. Interesting story is that Office 365 for Mac, iPhones, that was ready 2 years previously, but that was on the shelf. Steve didn't want to release it. Satya said, no, we're going to be a different kind of company, and he released it. So we use technology to communicate. Every month, Satya does an employee town hall, and for those in Redmond, in person. We use Yammer, and Yammer does a sentiment, like people can do thumbs up, thumbs down, and then his team analyzes the data. Satya goes on Yammer every day and looks at what is the conversation in the company. How many of you have CEOs that do a town hall every month with employees? Awesome, cool. So that's a huge change for us. And then in our every selling country where we do business, in our sales team, we have change agents. So we have senior leaders, and their job is to help with cultural change, to drive cultural change in that sales organization, identify goals and objectives and measurements. And so that is also a huge change too. So there's putting kind of the tangible things into action. So we don't dictate, from the top down, what is the right cultural change in a particular organization. We have that come from within. I hope that was useful. My intent was that you got some value out of it that you can use immediately, but also that it could help you in your career. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Please give it up for Helen Fanucci.